prove it. There is not a place in this world where I am not asked to prove it. Substantiate my belonging. Verify that my body is qualified to occupy this space, as if the miracle of my enfleshment weren't enough. But I am asked to be superhuman, divine even, more than mediocre like the rest of them. To demonstrate that my placement on this earth is not the mere result of affirmative action. But I will not eat the bread of your cunning. My sustenance is found elsewhere.
Welcome to week 1 of the season of Lent. And this week we're focusing together as a community on the practice of self-interrogation. Peacemaking is both an internal and an external practice. We access our power to drive change when we first allow our own hearts and our own minds to transform. We can then invite our families and our communities and our institutions and our countries into similar journeys, but we have to go there first. We identify our own biases in this work. We question our assumptions. We continually assess whether we unknowingly contribute to or benefit from injustice. While we never neglect to call out the unjust behaviors of our adversaries, we leverage our own power within our families, within our communities, to urgently promote just peace. Annika Sanders says, quote, "Let there be peace and let it begin with me," end quote. And this is a song that we sing often within our community. Even Michael Jackson's song, starting with "The Man in the Mirror," reflects this kind of wisdom, and Jesus himself teaches us to look at the log in our own eye before we draw our attention to the speck in our neighbors. Our first inclination is often to fix others and to condemn outside bad actors. And while external advocacy is perhaps the most visible expression of just peacemaking, we have to continually interrogate our own biases, our own assumptions. We have to identify our own complicity, even, and also the unrealized potential for positive change that exists within our own lives. If peacemaking is internal and external, then self-interrogation is an essential part of the internal component to peacemaking. It reminds us that we're not separate from the problems that we seek to address. Rather, we're also interdependent with them. And this is true also in our ideal state of mutual flourishing or systemic justice. And because we're so interconnected, we have to continually assess whether our role, beginning with our own hearts and with our own minds, heals our world and our communities or harms our world and our communities. The external work of peacemaking is equally important, but sometimes we seek to do good by helping or by fixing others, and we fail to ask ourselves the important questions about how we may be contributing to the problems to begin with. The peacemaker's greatest power is to assume radical responsibility over themselves and over their communities. And that's where we have the greatest influence. Rather than simply blaming other actors, we have to ask, what could we do differently? How are we contributing to harm? What's the kind of change that the marginalized leaders that we work with need to see from my community? And how can I make that happen? When we invite our own communities into the work of self-interrogation, we open new possibilities for more effective peacemaking and for advocacy, ones that understand that we are interdependent and Therefore, we have to see ourselves within the problems that we try to solve. I think of my friend Ronnie Kider, who I've spent a good deal of time with over the years. She's an Israeli who lives in the village that is 1 kilometer away from the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is the home to 2 million people, most of whom are children, and all of whom are sealed in what is termed the world's largest open-air prison. Makeshift rockets from some militant groups have periodically rained down on the Israeli communities that are near the border of Gaza. They killed dozens and terrorized tens of thousands more. Many Israelis call for a stronger security response in the face of Gaza. And yet, Ronnie, she notes that many military experts have also stated that sealing millions of people in squalor for years on end and periodically bombarding them with bombing can only have negative consequences for them and for Israel. Ronnie is one of a number of Israeli activists who don't deny the harm of violence inflicted by the Palestinians, but who also work to challenge and change their own community's role in the conflict. Ronnie invites other Israelis to self-interrogate and to do this important work, to think about how Israel is contributing to the ongoing violence in both directions. And she advocates for how she thinks that needs to change to bring about a just peace. She reminds her community of what many know, that some of their security measures, quote unquote, might actually jeopardize their own long-term safety. And so Ronnie, she has joined with other Israelis and even with Palestinians in Gaza to advocate for and to model a different approach to Israeli-Palestinian relations. A kind of approach where freedom and where dignity and the security of Israelis and Palestinians is sought in equal measure. And so, during this Lenten season, what does it look like for us to embrace this practice of self-interrogation?